Good day, everybody. This is your rural educator in the Black Belt, Mr. Verdi L. Coleman III. Currently, I teach 11th grade English in the rural Wilcox County area, and much like Wilcox County and many other areas, we have many problems that only a rural area can have as far as cost of living, job access, and more. The biggest of which lies in the education system in the rural area. For all of its struggles, however, Wilcox County is not alone. Neighboring towards Montgomery, Lowndes County is yet another poor county in Alabama that is experiencing major problems in the rural education department. For my In the News assignment, I looked at an article that took place in the Lowndes County area that highlighted some of the same events and problems that are currently going on in the Wilcox County area. They share a lot of issues in common, but the one thing that they shared the most is that they cannot accept the full blame for the cards that they were being dealt due to being two of the poorest counties in Alabama. Many of the information that I will be referring to will come from the Lowndes County article and a little bit of other information as well. The link will be at the end of the video and your handout that you will receive in the email. There are three main questions that I want to address to the public. How does this event connect to historical and current trends in rural education? How is this event relevant to issues in school and school policy and practice? And finally, what questions does this event raise about the future of rural schooling? All right, first question. How does this event connect to historical and current trends in rural education? All right, the article contains different events that are similar to counties in Alabama and have ranges spanning back towards 2008, maybe even further. Counties like Lowndes, Wilcox, and Bullitt County have trends that are similar to other schools in rural areas and select states of the South. To name a few of those commonalities, you have lack of stable education policies, the teacher salaries looking a little kind of shaky, being that according to 2019's average salary poll in Alabama, the average teacher salary is just under $54,000. Now, considering that that is a high number for some people in Alabama, it's not the number that we need. There is also low test scores in math and reading. Then, of course, the after-school meals that are available for extracurricular activities. This is really a way for kids to have an extra meal because many of them cannot go home and get a proper meal that they need. There's also lack of tutoring services that is compounded with lack of funding. Now, at the core, these particular issues have a common factor. It's poverty. Poverty plays a role in every major issue that exists, and the students, they suffer at all around the most. Lowndes County is but an example of how rural education needs as much financial backing and support as the urban and city schools, if not more. Lowndes County at the time is 98% free lunch and reduced lunch school. In 2019, they moved to 100%, just like Wilcox and other neighboring counties. Now, second question. How is this event relevant to issues in school policy and practice? Glad you asked. One of the major issues I want to highlight is the lack of transportation and funding for after-school programs for kids. In the article, a woman named Annalie Carr, she worked at Calhoun High School, she made a statement that there is not enough money to have those after-school tutorial programs, let alone for transportation. Now, she stated that she was comfortable staying as a volunteer with no pay, although she admits that it hurts her considering that she's forbidden to drive students home, being that it is against school policy. Now, lack of parental support plus poverty state equals a paradox that basically cripples the teacher's abilities to give the students the best that they need in order to succeed. Now, this also affects the students long term when they are needing to pass the annual testing mandated by the state to maintain a satisfactory report card. I also can admit that this has been a crippling factor for the after school activities that we have. Some kids have a way home, but most of the time it's because of, baseball, football, basketball, anything dealing with sports or band. When it comes to the after school tutoring, it seems that we can't really get that parental support. And you don't hear much about that in the urban areas or the city schools because the school is within a heavily populated urban neighborhood. So you have the metro, you have all sorts of ways to get around. Mind you, many of them are not as safe in the eyes of the rural people, which is why they also say that the children cannot really get into extracurricular activities in the rural area because if the parent cannot be the person to get them themselves, then they don't trust many other people to do it. So I can imagine that this event itself is being fueled by poverty is the one thing that gives people that motive to say, I wish I had more money, or they work overtime and basically the kids go lacking, not being able to really enjoy the fruits of their labor or to be able to increase their abilities to be able to increase their chances of getting out of that area to make something better. Finally, the third question that we want to ask, what questions does this raise about the future of rural schooling? Where there are problems, there are questions. As a former man of science, you learn that there are never any errors or mistakes in an experiment, but questions. Classroom educators are asked the most questions of any other educator professional in the system. And if you want more information or if you want to understand why the classroom educator takes so much heat, there is a group on Facebook called Black Teachers Rock. On this page, fellow educators come together and address problems that plague the school community. Many of the frequent flyers on the page are rural educators with limited to no resources and have said as a whole that classroom teachers are asked questions by the public that they cannot answer. So, it is time as classroom educators to ask those same questions. Question 1. Why are the majority of the funds allocated towards the urban areas? 2. Why does the state penalize the school system for not having adequate resources to keep up with the urban schools for state testing and Common Core standard achievement? And third, why are crime and dropout rates higher in rural areas than anywhere else? Now, these extra questions here, as far as the main three that we discussed earlier, could be discussed in a highly debatable way. However, you as the viewer and you as the reader are able to come up with these interpretations yourself. I will only give you a brief, very brief interpretation of why I think these questions, or what do you think the answers to these questions are. The first question, the majority of the funds being allocated towards the urban areas. Think about all the businesses that are in major cities like Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, Mobile, Montgomery, and Huntsville. Major businesses are there. So when they put the schools in near the area, they already know that the students that graduate from there will go to those major businesses as well as the neighboring colleges that are in there as well. South Alabama, Alabama State University, University of Alabama in Birmingham, just to name a few. And then, of course, the community colleges that funnel and pool into the trade or lead up to those four-year universities. Is this always right? No. But the progression of the need to push a student towards the college degree is, in many ways, you can say that it is the move. Not a lot of people are promoting trade the way that it used to be back in the early 60s, 70s, and 80s. You have a lot more people now that are pushing college, and the best way you get college is to put the jobs where the colleges are. So a place like Wilcox County, Alabama, the closest college that is there is between Selma and Thomasville. Selma has Wallace Community College, while Thomasville has Coastal Alabama, formerly known as Alabama Southern. Now, The average student may not want to go to those community colleges because they don't see anything outside of that area, especially considering the fact that their own school system is not being funded the way that other schools are funded when they speak to their friends. And we educators have that conversation as well. Now, this kind of leads up to the second question about why the state penalizes the school system for not having adequate resources to keep up with the urban schools for state testing and Common Core standard achievement. As mentioned before in problem 2, you see the poverty levels are high. In an urban area, there's no problem being funded for preparation for the state test, which in this case, in 2019, 2020, it is the ACT. Previously, it was the ACT Aspire, but now we have the ACT, the official ACT test. And this was the state's way of being able to give an equalizer to all urban and rural schools. However, they did not take into account that even the rural schools still cannot find enough resources to adequately push the children to benchmark or past benchmark levels. Also, with Common Core has become a crippling factor in which the state has recognized that it may be pulled eventually. However, that still does not change the fact that rural areas such as Wilcox, or Lowndes County, Bullitt County, or even my hometown, Choctaw County, they are suffering at the hands of Common Core because most of the time Common Core is directly correlated with math, and math is the weakest subject in many of the high schools that we are looking at today. Look, a lot of the ACT scores that come back, math is the lowest. In Wilcox County, math has been the lowest score for many years. And so with the state accountability, with the report card, the scores that the children make, if they don't benchmark, that hurts us in the long run. And so that could lead to many other different things that could come about, and we wouldn't want that. So that leads up to my third and final extra question. Why are crime rates and dropout rates higher in rural areas than anywhere else? Well, where there's smoke, there's fire. So if a child realizes that they can't be supported properly, and then they're being penalized for not having the support that they need to make the achievement because they weren't supported properly, ask yourself this question. What do you think you would do? You would drop out too, right? And when you drop out, what's the next most appealing thing? Selling drugs, prostitution. The sky's the limit when it comes to crime. It offers a light that cannot be discussed in the urban area because of its taboo. We understand it in the rural area as something natural. That does not mean that it's a good thing that we recognize its autonomy, but at the same time, we can't just say that there are other options out there. We can't convince the kids that there are other options out there when we're not given the ability to give them the options that they need. So there's another factor that I forgot to add into this. There's also called the pregnancy factor. You notice that a lot of people that are getting pregnant in high school are in those rural areas. You don't hear much about teen girls getting pregnant in urban areas, and I'm pretty sure you're going to be able to figure out why. They have things in order to help them stay focused. A lot of rural areas don't. So that's also something that I want to look into further down in my research about the black male and the black female students. So for the time being, as I close, I want you guys to realize that it is difficult teaching in a rural area. There are so many more factors that I could speak on, but I want you guys to always keep every educator, urban or rural, lifted up in prayer. But definitely keep Alabama rural school systems lifted up in prayer because we need the support now more than ever. My name is Coleman III. This has been your In the News moment. God bless.